played to lose. There's no room for fear in this game.
This is the New Hampshire High School Football Show.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
If you can't stand the way this place is, take yourself to higher places.
The New Hampshire High School Football Show is brought to you by New Hampshire State Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement.
I don't want them to gain another yard.
You blitz all night. If they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm going to take every last one of you out.
And now, here's Pete Terrier.
And it's just disappointing that every time me and you go to the same game, it's blowout. We will not make that mistake again.
And I'll offer this up to you. Next time you have to make a trip out to Keene, if you want to come next Friday to see Bedford Keene, I'll buy you dinner.
Well, good morning and welcome to another edition of the New Hampshire High School Football Show. We do it each and every Saturday morning during the season on AM 610, WGIR AM around Manchester. Also, our Seacoast affiliate, 96.7 The Wave, and Dave Haley Country. I am Pete Terrier, along with Dave Haley. And Dave, you experienced something this morning that you have yet to experience this season, or this year, I should say, while coming in to do the show. A little snow and freezing rain on the roadways.
I didn't get the freezing rain. A little dusting, though, in
Yeah?
Manchester. Yeah, well, that's nice.
So-
if it's going to be cold, give me snow.
What was it like on the seacoast? So just rain or nothing going on?
Nothing going on yet. It's
Oh.
windy.
Because I left my house in Goffstown this morning, and I walked outside my door, and I'm coating of snow. And you know what? Now that come to think about it, when I got here into Manchester, and I live literally 5 minutes up Goffstown back road, there wasn't anything on the ground out here, was there? So are we at a higher elevation in Goffstown or something like that?
No, it's coming down
know.
now, and there's a little dusting right now as I came as I rolled into town.
Well, nevertheless, be careful on the roadways if you're out there. It's obviously holiday shopping season in full force underway, and you know what? There are some dangers out there, so just be careful. We're in a little transition period, Dave. Dave comes in this morning. What are we going to talk about? Well, we have a real good show lined up, but really that part doesn't start until 8 o'clock, so this is kind of free form from now till 8 o'clock.
We got a good show from 7 to 8.
We do, but we've got special guests lined up in the 8 o'clock hour talking about an outstanding event that I was able to be a part of last year, and I'm glad they're bringing it back for another go-around. The Chad second annual New Hampshire East-West High School All-Star Football Game. We'll have the two coaches for this year's game in studio. That game scheduled for Saturday, June 29th at UNH, where the Wildcats play. And, of course, the Wildcats playing in playoff action this afternoon. We'll get into that as well. We'll have Jim Schubert, who will be one of the coaches of those two teams, and also Bob Cameron. You may recognize those names if you're high school football fans, and you have been for a while. Schubert, of course, the longtime coach of Manchester Central, powerhouse Central teams. Dave Philliston, Ryan Day, Sloan Russett, just some of the names that Coach Schubert coached and sent on to higher levels of play at the collegiate level. And for Dave Philliston's case, he made it all the way. I think he had a cup of coffee with the NFL. I know he wasn't, playing regularly in the NFL, but certainly a tremendous coach at Manchester Central. And Bob Cameron was the head man at Concord High School, actually coached, I think, with Jack Gaddy for a little while when Jack was in Concord. And then he stepped down, and Eric Brown, the current Concord coach, took over. So we'll talk with both of those guys live in studio. And Nick Valis, who really is the founder of this East-West All-Star game, which I think is great. I think it's an awesome game. It's in the summertime. It's graduated seniors, just graduated seniors, and it's all New Hampshire. Dave, you know the Shrine game is a New Hampshire, Vermont thing, which is cool.
Yeah.
But you don't know half the kids playing in the game. In this game, you know all the kids.
Yeah.
And we're actually, you may not know this yet, we're broadcasting that game again this year on WGIR AM 610. And I hope that you'll be available to do that game with me as a color commentator coming off your outstanding performance in the Turkey Bowl last Thursday.
Yeah, of course I would. Yes, it's mind-blowing to look at the numbers here in front of me of the amount of money that was raised. So it's fantastic, over $300,000.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. It's good football. And, oh, by the way, it'll be a three-man booth that day. because Mike Bellevue from Sauhegan has already said
Yes.
I'm in as a special color commentator. So it's going to be
Good.
you and Coach B fighting over over the microphone.
No. He's the expert in the room. So that's good.
I want to hear you guys match wits on wham blocking. He's going to get all technical on us. We're going to be looking at him like, you go, Coach, because we don't know what
Just
the hell
let
you're
him play.
talking
Yeah,
about.
let him get out there and do it.
So we'll talk about that in the next hour. All three of those gentlemen will be in studio live with us. I very much look forward to that. But in the meantime, we're in that awkward transition phase between your sport, basketball, and the sport that just completed, football. So we'll talk a little bit about both over the course of this hour. And we'll even work in some Notre Dame talk. I did watch the Notre Dame game against USC the other night, pretty much in its entirety. I now know who Manti Te'o is.
Thank you. You're joining 50 million other people.
And I told you the funny story about watching the game at my mother-in-law's house in Warren, Maine. And she's a sports fan. She's more of a sports fan than her husband, so more so than my father-in-law. So we're watching the game. And Manti Te'o has an interception. Ball was thrown right at him.
Seventh.
Easy.
Seventh
Interception of the year.
It's never thrown. He was where the ball was going. It's not thrown right at
That
him.
was instincts. He's got a nose for the football. Is that what they say about Manti Te'o?
He does.
So the guy who I had told you the week before on the show that I had never heard of him before, which I truly had not heard of Manti Te'o. I don't follow college football. I just don't have time for it in my life, unfortunately. So my mother-in-law says, "Oh, he's good. I see him play all the time. He's a very good player," she says. And I had to chuckle, and I said, if Dave Haley was only here right now to hear you say that, I would be getting a whole lot of grief.
I was screaming at the television in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire.
So now you got to wait, what, a month, a half, 2 months?
5 weeks.
5 weeks now?
Yeah. I already took the day off from work the day after the game. The game's on a Monday night.
Hey, I don't blame you.
I'm going down to my Uncle John lives in Hingham, Mass, and my Uncle Tommy is in Duxbury. So it's a family affair, Pete. So we're going down there. I'm going to go down there that Monday night. And I have 2 floating holidays at my job, and I'm going to take one 7 days into 2013.
We have a thing here at Clear Channel called Spirit Day, where we can take a day off or a half day, and we can volunteer our services to like a community service project. We think Notre Dame's, Adam Furious, our producer's like, we do? I'm going to be taking advantage of that. Gay Pride Day, right? That'd be your day to get involved. You want to march in that parade?
No.
No?
I'm
Okay.
done with parades after today.
Oh, that's right. The parade today. Did you know this? This is funny. The Spirit of New Hampshire Christmas Parade, presented by the Granite State Credit Union. It's the big kickoff to the holiday season here in downtown Manchester, where we do the show at WGIR. Sponsored, the media sponsors, WGIR, AM 610, this station right here, and Rock 101, WGIR FM. The MC for the parade.
No.
You're talking to him.
Yes.
You and Kelly Ripa?
Me and Kelly, Jennifer Wells Ripa. Jen's been in here producing our show.
Sure.
We're emceeing the parade today. So if you want a real laugh,
Regis?
I'm Regis, yes.
No, doesn't Regis involve with every parade out there? I'm going to be in Portsmouth tonight. I'll be looking for Reg.
You know what? It's
What's
going to
the
be a
parade
lot
tonight?
of fun. This is a great parade, especially if it continues to snow throughout the course of the day. They've got 88 different organizations, floats. Rock 101's got this sick float. Adam, you helped build this float.
If I don't win an award today, I am causing a riot.
Out of 88 floats?
Out of 88 floats, I can tell you right
Aiming
now.
high.
Let me put it this way: we have over 1,000 lights on this thing.
Who put it together? Clark Griswold?
Me.
Oh, Adam.
I mean, they've been working on it.
No. You don't understand. You don't understand. All right. I took this thing from 5 or 6 years ago, which was put together by Yard Stakes, which almost killed everybody, thanks to the general manager of the station's driving. And this thing is now built like a house.
I can't wait to see
Is
this
it at the
thing.
beginning, the end, or the middle of the parade? That's key, I think.
I
Remember what you see last.
Yeah, they're gonna remember what they see
It's
first.
going to be key, Adam.
It's going to be a lot of fun, so I can't wait for it. And I only hope that there's enough snow so I can make some snowballs and pummel you when that Rock 101 parade
Pete, I will
float goes
come off
by.
of that float like Randy freaking Savage, like the Macho Man. Ooh yeah, dig it! And I will drop an atomic elbow on you on that stage. I don't care, man. It is coming.
Just bring that chick Elizabeth with you if you're all Macho Man on me. Bring her.
Miss Elizabeth's dead.
Dude, she's
Oh,
dead.
she is.
And so is Macho Man.
Yeah, Macho
They're
Man
both
died.
really.
R.I.P. And so is the greatest wrestler of all time, the Junkyard Dog.
What about my former Little League teammate, Triple H?
Triple H, still alive, married the boss's
That's
daughter.
right.
He was a Little League teammate.
Yeah, we were a double play combination. Shortstop, I was second base, yeah. The PK Landscapers, Nashua West Little League, circa 1981, I want to say.
1981.
Next time he calls into that other morning show, I'm going to ask him about that.
You can. He knows who I am. We talk. I see him in the studio. He comes in studio every once in a while.
Hey, Pete, do you remember that time we got that double play in the championship game?
We stunk. We were bad. We also played for a team sponsored by the former Davidson Travel Service out of Nashua. It was called DTS was our name, and our coach was Jim DeValla. And they used to say DTS, you know what DTS stands for? DeValla's team's not very good. You know, the word that starts with an S.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so we played Little League together. Yeah. He was a little bit shorter and skinnier back then.
Yeah, he got on the roids.
Well, hey.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
I won't say
Allegedly.
that.
Can't you say anything and then just say allegedly afterwards?
Look, the guy is a huge guy, and he lives in the state. So, I don't want him. All I know now is next time I see him, hey, Pete, heard you said I was doing steroids or something like that, and then I'm going to run.
And then we're going to have to pick Pete up off the floor with a freaking spatula.
Exactly. So it's going to be a great day today. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you're looking for something to do this afternoon, go out to the Manchester Christmas Parade. They have this huge Santa Claus shuffle going on before it. There's going to be like 3,000 Santa Claus people dressed up as Santa Claus jogging down the street in a 5K race. It's pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of that movie. Was it Jerry O'Donnell or Jerry O'Connell? I think Jerry O'Connell. He was The Bachelor, the movie The Bachelor, where all these brides were trying to marry him because he was going to inherit this huge amount of money. He had to get married by a certain date, and there was a scene where all these brides were just rushing down the street with their wedding gowns on, looking to get to the church to marry this guy.
That was the kid who was Robin in the Batman Robin.
Chris O'Donnell.
Chris O'Donnell.
There you go.
And I can't believe I knew that movie. That's awful.
And I can't believe we just spent the whole first segment talking about stuff like that.
About Christmas parades? Yeah, I couldn't
We'll
see
get
that
to a break.
Did not see that coming.
We'll come back. I do want to get into the Turkey Bowl.
And can I say real quick?
Yeah.
You say the awkward transition. I'm into basketball, man. I've talked to 19 coaches the last 2 days, so I've moved on.
Well, we'll talk about that.
I mean, we'll talk football.
I do want to talk.
I'm not transitioning. I'm there.
All right, you're already there. I do want to talk about that Turkey Bowl game and kind of the final place.
Yeah.
Where Trinity should be, and we can pay our last respects to the Central High School as far as consideration for top 10. And then we'll kind of get into the show. And don't forget, we've got the great second hour of the show. We've got the in-studio guests. Jimmy Schubert's going to be here. Bob Cameron, the two coaches for the CHAD, second annual New Hampshire East-West High School All-Star Football Game. And then we've got the founder of that game, Nick Bayless. And I can't wait to talk to Nick about this football game, of course, but about the UNH playoff game. I mean, he's got a real stake in this game. I can't believe he's not down there at Wofford University watching this game in person. He's going to be here in studio with us. So he chose us over.
Bayless is everywhere.
Yes.
2 at Bedford, 2 slot receivers.
Yes.
I got to find out the connection.
Yeah, we'll break it down with Nick Bayless and Schubert and Cameron as we continue on the New Hampshire High School Football Show, WGIR, AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave. There's one way to wake up my co-host Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. Play a little 80s hair metal. Adam Furious, you just made a new best friend. Should have seen Dave just spark right up. Now, isn't Winger coming to Wally's Pub
next Saturday night? I got my ticket.
You do?
Wally's Pub, Hampton.
You're
Kidding
gonna
me? I'm getting a picture. With my Christmas picture is going to be me and Kip Winger.
And
Mark
probably our colleague Andy Blacksmith from the Morning Buzz. I think he's hosting that show.
Good.
So you can get him. Maybe he can photobomb your picture with Kip Winger.
Yeah, I'm going to be on there. I'm telling you, I'm going to get a picture with him.
Dave and I have gone to hair metal shows. I think we went to Cinderella. Did you go to Dawkins too with me?
Yeah, we went to Dawkins too.
Were we alone again? Without you?
Without you.
That sounds bad. Just a heads up.
Yes.
I almost started singing. And I remembered I'm on the radio. So.
Hey, I was just scrolling through our friend Roger Brown's site, nhfootballreport.com.
Great site.
It is a great site. Roger's a great guy. And I don't know if you had this up on nhsportspage.com. Tyler Grant from Exeter wins the Gatorade Player of the Year award for New Hampshire.
I didn't know that. I knew James Caparell was up for that too, but well deserved. Yeah, I think any of the guys nominated could have deserved it, but yeah.
I mean, here's the year for Tyler Grant, statistically, anyways. 1,238 yards rushing, 20 touchdowns. Also caught 12 passes for 217 yards and 3 TDs. 47 tackles on defense, 3 INTs.
Good two-way player.
Forced 3 fumbles, recovered 3 fumbles. I think Exeter had 3 fumbles the entire year themselves. He recovered 3 and forced 3.
Yeah, he got Player of the Year on New Hampshire Sports Page for Division 1.
Yeah, I did see that, and he deserves it. And you know what? If Exeter wasn't Exeter, his numbers would have been like twice that.
Yeah, they took him out of a lot of games where they were blowing people out.
Well, that too, and the fact that they spread the football.
Yeah.
I mean, Galen Antolino, Jamie Vogt, Colby Swain, they really are a balanced team.
Yeah.
And by the way, Tyler Grant, we've had him on the show. We interviewed him, on nhsportspage.com on camera. Very, very cool, calm, collected kid. Very humble.
Yeah.
A leader. And a 3.67 GPA, so he's a very smart kid.
I never got to tell my Bill Ball story. I was going to tell it during football season, and it got away from us. Can I tell my Bill Ball story?
Yeah, you never have to ask if you can tell a story. Just tell it.
I thought you were going to start talking about parades again. So I'm excited for a Portsmouth parade tonight. I have 2 buddies. We'll give them a shout-out. Mike Murphy and Anthony Monroe, who played football way back. I play basketball with them now. They played football for Bill Ball at Exeter, and I said, that's a big rivalry, huh, Winnicott? And they said, oh, my God. They said, we lost to Winnicott last year. They both said, we went into practice on Monday, and they were cut out there, and they looked around like, hey, where are the footballs? And Coach Ball came out and said, not going to need them today. And he said, we ran.
Do you have your cleats? Do you have your running shoes?
They both threw up, and they said it was just the longest 2 hours of their entire lives, but that's what he does. That's how he wins. He's got those guys all on the same page as we saw, and it's pretty funny.
It's been a long time since. It really has been a long time. It's been almost 2 weeks since we've done this show because, we were on last Saturday, but it was a pre-recorded show, which we recorded on Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So we didn't really have much time to kind of talk about the number 1 in the power poll situation, and I know you don't like the power polls.
I do. All right, now I'm going to clarify. I don't mind power polls. I just think when it gets so much discussion that it's not the BCS. My point with the power polls is if you're number 2, you're not going to the Fiesta Bowl. If you're number 3, it doesn't mean you go to the Orange Bowl. It's a power poll. They're fun. We do it for basketball. We're going to do it again. Top 16 teams in the state. It's fun. It's fun to talk about. It's when people start arguing about it. And I'm not pointing at you. Parents get mad about it. That's when I say, okay, hold on. It's just for fun. That's all I'm saying. I do like power polls.
All right, and the only reason I really bring it up is because it bothers me because there's been a lot of talk about, the fact that Exeter was voted number 1.
Yeah.
In both of the power polls that are out there. And one of them, which I take a part in, and actually voted for Exeter over Winnicott. And people are killing me, the other voters on both polls, because there was only one voter in both of the polls combined that actually voted Winnicott number 1 over Exeter, because Winnicott did beat Exeter when they played head-to-head. They finished with the same records.
Here's my question real quick. Why weren't they killing you weeks before? Because you didn't
That's
switch
what
it.
I wanted to say.
All right.
Because that's why I want to defend myself, and I haven't had the opportunity to do it. And the fact is that, look, it's easy to kind of look back after the fact and say, oh, this is the way it should be, because they did meet head-to-head. They both won state championships. They played pretty much equal schedules in terms of, opponents and things like that. Now, they didn't play the same teams, but they played tough schedules, both of them. There's no one that's going to argue that.
Oh, sure.
And some could argue that maybe Winnicott had a tougher road, throughout the course of the season, because Division II, I think top to bottom was a stronger lead than Division I. And some people might question that as well. But look at the way it was in Division II. You talk about all the teams running it down. All right, let's start. You got Winnicott, you got BG, you got Keene, you got Bedford in no particular order. Then you got Spalding, you got Dover, you got Timberland, Manchester West. All right, there's a team. All those teams are competitive, at least, if not decent teams.
You know what I hear a lot? And answer me this. A lot of people say, well, Winnicott lost to Keene, and Keene lost to West. That's sort of part of their argument is the whole. What do you think about that?
To me, it doesn't mean anything because it's a particular game, a particular opponent on a particular day. It doesn't mean anything. And let's face it, Winnicott lost without their coach. Their coach wasn't there.
Yeah.
So there's an excuse. Look what they did to Souhegan. Oh, his coach wasn't there, or their coach wasn't there. To me, that means nothing. And for people to, after the fact, come down and say, here's my poll, and this is the #1 team, and they beat Exeter, the #1 team, but yet you guys have them behind the team that they beat. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. And I understand that, and I thought about it when I was doing my selections. But the fact is, I had to do a ballot every single week throughout the season. All right? In the beginning of the season, I had Pinkerton, my #1 team, until Exeter beat them. Okay? Yep. Then I put Exeter at #1. They were the #1 team until Winnicott beat them. Then who was my #1, do you think, after Winnicott beat Exeter?
Winnicott.
Yes, Winnicott was my #1 team. Until when do you think they were #1?
They lost to Keene.
You got it. They lost to Keene. I moved them out of there, okay? Mm-hmm. So Exeter was my #1 team. Did Exeter lose again the rest of the year after that Winnicott loss?
Nope.
Okay.
And they beat Pinkerton again.
So what? And they beat Pinkerton again. So they ran the table after that loss, after they had become #1. They #1. They won the championship in pretty convincing fashion against Pinkerton. Yep. I was at the game.
Yep.
All right. Pinkerton, is a good football team. I think maybe the second best football team in the state, but I voted them behind Winnicott because Winnicott won the championship, and I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I gave them credit for that. But am I expected a guy, and you talk about integrity and not knowing what the hell you're talking about, I'm talking about the distractors here, complaining about people voting Exeter #1, despite the fact that Exeter beat them head-to-head. What kind of integrity does that give me if I have an Exeter team #1 for basically the last 5 weeks of the season? They go out, finish the deal, they win the championship, and all of a sudden I say, oh, now they're not #1 because Winnicott won their championship too and they beat them head-to-head in week 4.
I agree totally with you, and that's a great argument. And I was going to add, Brockton's now in the Super Bowl, by the way, down in Massachusetts, and Pinkerton beat Brockton. So that makes beating Pinkerton somewhat convincingly, by more than one score, twice for Exeter, even more impressive. And Brockton's in the Super Bowl down in Massachusetts.
And people were saying that Brockton win didn't mean as much, and I don't put a ton of stake in that, to be honest with you.
They went on the road. That's still a good win.
I don't know. Great. I'm glad Brockton. I'm sure Brian O'Reilly's pleased about it and said, see, I told you so. This was a good team, and we beat them. But I don't put a lot of stock in that because I haven't seen Brockton. I don't know anything about them. I don't know much about I know about their history and their tradition. But I just don't think that it would make sense for me, who had been voting Exeter #1 for 5 weeks or whatever. Yeah. Why should I all of a sudden say, you know what? Yeah, they're not #1 now because they just finished the championship and they won the championship. So now I'm going to vote them #2 because Winnicott beat them back then.
No, I agree.
When I honestly feel that Exeter would beat them if they played again.
And once you got to that final Saturday, you can't flip them. You can't at that point. You can't flip them.
But these people who make their own polls and they're after the fact votes and then say that we're idiots voting and we don't know what the hell we're talking about. That drives me crazy. That makes me.
Yeah, it's not true.
That kind of.
There's always going to be. I get some interesting emails, as you've seen sometimes.
Yeah.
Listen, you're not going to please everybody doing what we do, and even my writing. I've never said anything negative about a kid ever in 6 years of doing that website, and I've never said anything negative about a coach. I may have implied things, but I never say anything directly, especially about a kid. But you're still going to get people who are going to fire at you, and that's just part of doing what we do.
Now let's talk about that Turkey Bowl game, Manchester Central and Trinity. I think everybody favored Manchester Central going into that game, unless you were a Trinity supporter.
Have to.
And Division I versus Division IV. What does that win by Trinity say about their program, and what does it say about the Manchester Central program at this point in time?
I was really happy for I was really happy for Steve Burns, first of all, who's a friend, but you know, it was a great way to end that season. Those kids lost a heartbreaker up at Plymouth, and to turn around and beat a Division I team, I thought was really impressive. I thought in his first year he did a tremendous job. The other thing I think it showed you is that Central just wasn't the most disciplined team in the world. I thought Riley Cody threw the ball great. I think Troy Pelletier is a phenomenal athlete. He's a heck of a basketball player. I love watching that kid play both sports. They had a lot of good players. But they just didn't. They fumbled the ball 4 times, and in the end they shot themselves in the foot. And I thought that was a great win for Trinity. I also said, and I said this on the broadcast, I think it speaks well of Plymouth.
Yes, it does.
Who beat Trinity twice.
And Plymouth was a very good football team.
Very good.
And I would like to see...
People need to get off this whole, they're this division, they can't compete.
Or they won't compete.
No.
I think that's the biggest problem, that they have not moved up. They don't have open dates on their schedule. All right, they don't have some teams take a bye. Other teams like Souhegan will play Manchester Central.
I used to criticize
them
for that. And Chuck Lanahan, when he was on our show, I thought he was very articulate and said, "Look, we used to play Souhegan. We beat them all the time. Now we play Trinity. We're beating them." He's like, "What do you want me to do? You send them over and we'll beat them."
What did Bellevue say to us? That they were 2-19 against Coach Lanahan?
Yeah. And
this is Souhegan. 2-19.
Souhegan is one of the if I said to you who are the top programs, regardless of a division in New Hampshire, you would think of Souhegan. They're one of the handful of teams. Oh, of course. And now Portsmouth's in that conversation too, and you can go on and on. But there's not that many. If there's 8 or 9, you're going to name Souhegan. So absolutely, and they dominated.
Right.
I mean, that's hammer versus nail.
Does that Trinity win over Central in the Turkey Bowl? Does it kind of make up for the fact that they fell short in the championship game against Plymouth?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, yeah, I think it speaks well to Plymouth, and yeah, I think it speaks well to Steve Burns and those kids, Carmen G and Petruzzi and all the other guys, Ryan Carrier and on, Romeo Masuku. Yeah, they came back. They wanted that win today. I was interested to see the level of intensity there. Those kids wanted it. That was a great day. It was a perfect day.
And how about the people who say Central didn't care about the game? Because I heard people talking over the course of the week. I heard people talking over the course of the week that Central didn't really care.
First of all, we were there. Second of all, we've got on New Hampshire Sports Page quite a few Twitter followers, so I follow these kids, and they were. I mean, Troy Pelletier was tweeting the morning of the game, like, "Can't wait, Turkey Bowl." Like, these, give me a break. And that's a leader right there. That's not a kid who is going to get in for 3 or 4 plays. They wanted to win. They fumbled 4 times. That's why they lost.
Right.
And Trinity played well, and Trinity deserved to win that game, and. Yeah, I think it says a lot for Trinity. That was a great way to end the season. I think Steve Burns got him on and if I remember correctly from the preseason conversations, they've got a lot of young talent at Trinity too.
Oh yeah.
So they're going to be Psycho Ba, right? They've got a lot of kids who can play, so they're not going anywhere.
All right, we'll take a quick time out. Don't forget, top of the hour, 8 o'clock, special in-studio guest. We're going to be talking about the 2013 Chad, New Hampshire East-West High School All-Star Football Game. The 2 coaches for that game, Bob Cameron, the former Concord coach, Jim Schubert, the former Central coach, will be with us in studio, along with the founder of the game, Nick Valis, and that Valis name all over New Hampshire high school football, all over UNH football as well. So we'll talk with Nick about that and that proud Valis family name, and what a great charitable high school football all-star game involving all New Hampshire kids. I broadcast the game last year. Looking forward to doing it again this year. A lot of fun. That game is scheduled for warmer times, Dave. No snow, no freezing rain on Saturday, June 29th. Oh, by the way, the day before my birthday. So we'll have to, after the game, a little Terry birthday here. Celebration. Yeah. Don't forget to bring me something when you're there.
I'll make a note.
Quick timeout in the Hampshire High School Football Show, WGIR, AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave.
You found the best place for local high school football talk. It's the New Hampshire High School Football Show on WGIR AM 610 and News Talk 96.7 The Wave.
Welcome back. It is the New Hampshire High School Football Show. You know, during these breaks, we always talk about this, Dave, that some of the best stuff goes on during the break. One of our guests coming up in the next hour, Bob Cameron, the former Concord High School football coach, is going to be coaching the East team in the Chad, New Hampshire East-West High School All-Star Football game coming up next June. He arrived a little bit early, so we had some fun kind of catching up with him, getting to know him a little bit. And story, Dave, I went out there, introduced myself, told him that I've, interviewed him a few times for a former show that I used to. And he's like, well, unfortunately, I don't remember you. But that's okay. That's okay. He certainly won't forget after this show, I'll tell you that much. So we look forward to talking to him. And Jim Schubert, I'm sure he took his share of beatings at the hands of Jimmy Schubert and the Central Little Green over the years. And also Nick Bayless, he's going to join us as well. He's really the brainchild of this game and the driving force behind it. And we'll talk to him about the great charities and the Children's Hospital at Dartmouth that is going to benefit from the football game. So it should be fun. That's coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Those guys both in studio. Dave, we got high school football season in the rear view. We're heading up on basketball season right now. It gets underway next week. You've been doing a lot of work over the course of the past week with the website, nhsportspage.com, doing your previews, the scheduling. The schedules are out. I know that there's one schedule that's yet to be posted on the website.
No,
and
we
that's
haven't
my
done it.
fault.
You're not late yet.
I'm not late yet. Oh, I thought you gave me a deadline of November 30th, and it is December 1st today. But talk about some of the stuff that all the coaches you've been talking to and, some of the work that you've done, because you certainly have been banging it away on that typewriter of yours.
Yeah, I've spoken to, I think, 19 coaches at this point. And so I'm right now just talking to Division III and Division IV coaches because they start next Friday night. The following Friday night will be Division I and Division II. So I got a text from Dave Keefe, our friend Dave Keefe at Trinity, and he said, I'm ready to talk hoops. I said, I can't even talk to you now. I got to focus. I can't even think about Division I and Division II. I've got to get through the others. I wrote the Division IV preview, which will be on the website on Tuesday. And what I do for people that haven't read the site is top 10. I pick the top 10 teams, 3 or 4, sometimes 5 teams lurking outside the top 10. And then it's very detailed through every team. It's about 3,500 words, the D4 preview.
Holy cow.
Well, I get quotes from every coach, and I use blind quotes from coaches about other teams to kind of like the behind, sort of like Sports Illustrated with the behind enemy lines, which I think is the best feature of it. You want to hear what other coaches think. You know what I mean? I think if you're doing your previews and it's just your eyeballs, here's what I've seen and what I think. That's 50% of it. You need to talk to coaches that are seeing. They're all over the place, and you need to get their perspective. And they'll tell you, say, who's playing well is these guys, and they'll, who's a sleeper are these guys. So I do first team and second team, preseason All-State, and then other kids in consideration, and player of the year, and so forth and so on. So I love it. I'm excited. So I've still got more. I got Nate Camp from Kearsarge and Scott McNamee from Stevens I'm going to speak to this morning, and I'll write Division III sometime this weekend, and I'm fired up. I love it. I'm going Lisbon, Moultonborough. Lisbon's the top team in the north, and Moultonborough's the defending champs. Friday night, Moultonborough lost their point guard, Drew Swedberg, who was pretty much the MVP of the finals last year. He broke his foot.
So he's out for the year?
He's out for the year, which is absolutely crushing. Anytime a senior misses time, especially the entire season, it's heartbreaking. But I talked to his father, Matt Swedberg, their great coach, yesterday for about 20 minutes, and we had a really good talk. And so that's big news. When I rolled in this morning, I was just getting off the phone with Sam Natty, who's the Lisbon coach. He used to be the JV coach at Londonderry. And he said, did I hear some rumor about Drew Swedberg? So it's happening, Pete. It's out there, and I'm very lucky to have very, very good relationships with these coaches, and I've kind of become friends with them over the years, the 6 years doing the site. So I love talking to these guys. I'm looking forward to talking to the Division I, Division II guys, like the Keefes and Doc Wheelers and Fitzy and all the Jim Mulveys and all these guys next week. I'll start with that.
And you mentioned Dave Keefe was ready to get on the air and talk and talk some hoops. Next week we're going to be on location.
Yeah.
And we're going to be at the Toys R Us in Manchester doing the show live. It's part of our Stuff-A-Bus Toys for Tots with the Marine Corps program, where we work together with WMUR TV our Clear Channel stations here in New Hampshire. So we'll have the Manchester radio station set up shop at the Toys R Us in Manchester, across from the mall in New Hampshire, right near the auto fair dealerships and Chuck E. Cheese, which is a place that I had to go to a couple weeks ago.
I have a 6-year-old. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and so we're going to be there doing the show live. And I know we had talked about getting Coach Keefe and Coach Wheeler hopefully to join us on. Have you had any confirmations? You didn't even ask. He's looking at me like I haven't even asked yet.
I've talked to 19 other coaches. I will. I'll talk to both of them.
Well, that's the plan. That's the hope that we can get Doc Wheeler and Dave Keefe over because we're going to be right in Manchester.
Knowing those two, I'm sure they're both generous with their time if they're available. I'll talk to both of them today.
Well, the thing is, last year when I was doing the show with Mark Thaler, we had Doc Wheeler on while we were live there. He wasn't in person at Toys R Us. But we talked to him about the fact that these kids, they don't have Christmas. They don't have money. The parents, they just don't have the money, and they can't do things like that. So that's what this Toys for Tots program does.
It's a great program.
And Doc Wheeler actually spoke about how he has kids on his team, and I'm sure Dave Keefe, same thing, and coaches all around the state. They have kids that they don't have anything, and they've, done things for the families.
Absolutely.
Because they treat these kids like their own kids. And they've had to give them money or whatever just to get some food or whatever, buy a CD or something like that. It's a terrible situation. So I'm glad to be able to do that. We will, for the Seacoast listeners, we will have a outpost, so to speak, at the Fox Run Mall in Newington. So we'll be doing our shows live from there. But just this show in particular, and Mark Hebert's show, the Money Sense show, which comes up after us from 9 to 11, that's going to be live on location next week as well.
Yeah,
that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And again, I know that these coaches, from having relationships with them, what they do for these kids, that behind the scenes they don't want anyone to know, but helping kids out, and they got kids that they're, I know Jim Mulvey has like 8 kids at his house when he comes home at night, and his wife is cooking for the kids, and it's these guys, they don't. These coaches get paid about a dime an hour for the work that they do, and so that's you have to have a lot of appreciation for these guys.
All right, quick timeout. Come back. We'll get towards the top of the hour, 8 o'clock. Don't forget, live in studio guest. They're starting to filter in here to our WGIR studios in Manchester. We're going to be talking about the 2013 Chad New Hampshire East-West. The 2013 Chad, New Hampshire East-West High School All-Star Football Game. It's powered by Bedford and Nashua Ambulatory Surgical Centers. So we'll have the coaches, Jim Schubert and Bob Cameron. Cameron coaching the East team, Jim Schubert coaching the West team. We got Nick Valis, the founder of the game from Bedford and Nashua Ambulatory Surgical Centers. He's going to be in studio. I got to ask Nick about this UNH football game in the playoffs against Wofford this afternoon. He's got a kid on the team, let's just say that, if you can't figure out who it is. We'll find out after 8 o'clock. We'll come back. I want to talk a little Patriots with you in our next segment as we are on the New Hampshire High School football show. But football season's over, so we're transitioning soon to start up the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show next week. Pete Terrier, Dave Haley of NHSportsPage.com on WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave.
Welcome back to the best local coverage of New Hampshire high school football on the New Hampshire High School Football Show on WGIR AM 610 and News Talk 96.7 The Wave.
Heading up towards the top of the hour, 8 o'clock, this on the first day of December. Wow, where did November go? I mean, it flies by and right straight through the holiday season. I mean, we're fully in the holiday swing right now. You've got a young daughter at the age of 6. I got 2 young sons, 5 almost and 3 almost. And my 5-year-old is starting to ask a lot of questions about Christmas. All excited about Christmas lights and stuff going up. Is your daughter, Christmas crazy right now? Oh my God,
she's decorating the tree with my mother as we speak.
She
was up at 6.
You do it at 6 o'clock in the morning to decorate the tree?
She's fired up. Well, I was
How
up
can you not take part in that family tradition, Dave? You're here doing a radio show and you should be decorating a tree.
I'd screw it up. That's not my thing. I got the tree up there. That's the important part.
Did you go chop it down in the woods, or did you go
think it's a real tree? You're crazy.
It's a fake tree?
Oh yeah, it's not catching on fire. Let's put it that way.
I'm a real tree guy. I'm definitely a real tree guy.
Oh, Clark.
We're going to be doing ours, I think, next weekend, I believe, is when we're going to do it.
Yeah, you told me you had a
Yeah,
whole
I
thing
think it is
scheduled.
next weekend.
We were supposed to have a team meeting, and you said, no, I have my family Christmas day.
I am just crazy busy these days. I got lots of stuff
Lots
going on.
of promos.
Yeah, lots of promos.
We are going to be, speaking of promos, when we do have our team meeting at the Auburn Pits with our friend Big Carmen, GM Petruzzi. We have a little New Hampshire Sports Page team meeting at the Auburn Pits. A little shout out to a friend of ours.
Now, that is also going to coincide with my fantasy football playoffs. So, final game of the fantasy football regular season this week for me and for many of you that play fantasy football. I'm lucky enough to have a bye in the first round of the playoffs. And I was thinking about this the other day, and foolishly. Man, I got a bye in the first round, so I'm automatically advancing, and my players, I get to rest my guys. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't get to rest my guys. They could get hurt in a game that they're not even playing for me. So, that's the beauty of fantasy football.
All right, I'm going to tell one fantasy football people. I'll make it quick. Last year I was in the championship driving home from the Patriots-Dolphins game, and I was looking real good. Tony Romo was my quarterback. Believe it or not, I was in the finals, ready to win some substantial money, and all of a sudden I heard somebody else taking snaps for Dallas, and they said, I heard one of the announcers. I said, "Where's Tony Romo?"
Something
out loud.
about ribs.
At that moment, the guy said, "We don't think his hand's broken, but they're not going to play him again." And I lost the championship by 6 points, got 0 from my quarterback.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's the fantasy football.
We all have a
gods.
story.
Yeah, we all do. And hey, look, it's a lot of fun. Look, it's going to be fun as we transition to the basketball season. I know you're very excited about it. But let's just put a bow on the football season. It really was a good football season in New Hampshire. And it's going to be a lot different next year with the realignment, don't you think?
Yeah, I was looking at those on Roger's site earlier this week. It's real interesting. I think if there's one group, there's always going to be schools that are complaining about it. I know Spalding's not happy. But I think your lower division teams that the Guilfords, the Newfounds, that haven't co-opted with other schools, the way Epping did with Newmarket and Interlakes did with Moultonborough, those guys are going to struggle now. But going against like Somersworth and Monadnocks and Stevens and those guys, those guys are going to struggle in D3. But I think D1, I think it's pretty fair game, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I believe that. I think in D3 and, look, some of the teams in D2, Alvern's going to be in that D1. They're going to struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in a league, I believe, with North and South and BG. And then Keene's in that league as well.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird.
I think they can compete.
Merrimack, is Merrimack in that league? I don't know.
In Div 1?
Yeah. Well, what they're doing is they're combining Division 2 and Division 1. That's going to become Division 1. Division 3 and Division 4 are going to become Division 2.
That circle
and
of
5 and 6 are going to be Division 3.
That bad for Alvern then.
Yeah, that grouping of BG with North and South now.
That's going to be fun.
That's fun.
That's going to be fun. Too bad BG isn't what they were, throughout the Tony Johnson era. That's nothing against Travis Cody. It's just, look, it's a natural ebb and flow. I mean, the Patriots were awful for years, and now they've been the model franchise in the NFL since Belichick and Brady took over.
Well, Tony Johnson's record, and I'm not taking anything away, but it isn't his record. He struggled this year as a coach, right, down in Worcester?
I had heard they had 1 win or something like that. To me, that doesn't mean anything. He took over that program late. I mean, look, give him a chance.
I know.
Give him a chance to do what he's going to do.
He's a great coach.
As simple as that. All right, we got another hour to go. And,
I almost had the
special in-studio hour.
I almost put the New Hampshire Sports Forum against me right there with that. That's why I had to hustle with the Tony Johnson compliment.
Gotcha. The Chad second annual New Hampshire East-West High School All-Star Football Game coming up on June 29th. We'll talk to the 2 coaches in that game and the founder of that game coming up. They are in studio, ready to go for a full hour coming up next.
We have the opportunity to play like gods for the next half of football, but we can't be afraid to lose.
There's no room for fear in this game.
This is the New Hampshire High School Football Show.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
If you can't stand the way this place is, take yourself to higher places.
The New Hampshire High School Football Show is brought to you by New Hampshire State Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement.
I don't want them to gain another yard.
You blitz all night. If they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm going to take every last one of you out.
And now, here's Pete Terrier.
And it's just disappointing that every time me and you go to the same game, it's blowout. We will not make that mistake again.
And I'll offer this up to you. Next time you have to make a trip out to Keene, if you want to come next Friday to see Bedford Keene, I'll buy you dinner.
It is hour number 2 of the New Hampshire High School Football Show. We do it each and every Saturday morning, 7 to 9 a.m. on 2 fine stations here in the Granite State, WGIR AM 610 in and around Manchester. Also got a nice crystal clear FM signal for you, 96.7 The Wave. I am Pete Terrier, along with my co-host Dave Haley of NHSportsPage.com. And Dave, we got a full house in studio. We'll introduce the guests for you. We've got Nick Valis. He is our guest from the Bedford and Nashua Surgical Centers. We've got Bob Cameron, one of the coaches for the upcoming Chad New Hampshire East-West High School All-Star Football Game. We've got Jim Schubert. He's going to coach the West team in the Chad New Hampshire East-West High School All-Star Football Game. John Kesty, of course, from NHSportsPage.com, filming the thing for NHSportsPage.com. We'll have it posted on the website so you can listen to the show, you can watch the show, and it just makes it better when we've got guests in studio, Dave. Don't you agree? Because the focus of the camera doesn't have to be all on me and you.
Yeah, that's always a plus.
Although, I got to get zeroed in here on this beautiful hat that we've just been given. You might have seen these if you went to last year's, the inaugural East-West High School All-Star Football Game. Nice camouflage theme, and we were kind enough to be gifted these hats, so I'm really looking forward to the game coming up. The game is scheduled for June 29th at University of New Hampshire, Cowell Stadium. I broadcast the game last year, and I was shocked that it was a big-time blowout.
What was the final score in that?
I don't remember what the final score was, but maybe Nick can tell us. We'll start with you. Nick, you're the guy that really started this football game and came up with the concept. And I want you to talk about that decision and, of course, bringing it back for year number 2.
Well, there's a couple great reasons. The first and foremost is the cause, CHAD, Children's Hospital, Dartmouth.
Nick, bring that mic up a little bit to you.
Being parents and coaches, we always, all of us in this room have a passion for children and young people. But as parents, our worst nightmare is a sick child. And typically when children are ill, it's a long battle, especially involving cancer, which has affected our lives here in this room. And it's not like you're one and you're done. It's many treatments, sometimes many years. And there are many necessities that are not covered by insurance. And as you know, there are people without insurance. There's some folks involved in the game directly who lost children or have had children experience cancer. So to that end, it's a tremendous cause. The other cause is another venue for New Hampshire high school football players. As we all know, New Hampshire has expanded, and it's the amount of young people playing football. And I also believe the caliber of football has actually improved over the years, especially in the last 15, 20 years. And to that end, the Shrine Game, I believe, was not a good representation of New Hampshire talent. And their goal was to keep a good game, and thus I can understand why there was a throttle or a governor on the New Hampshire talent. In Division I, you were only allowed 8 players to choose. And Division I are the largest schools. So to that end, it was a remote chance. As a matter of fact, I believe 3 years ago or 2 years ago, there was no one from Manchester playing in the Shrine Game.
Wow.
Right. And I believe just last year's game, there may have been one or none from Nashua. So this is not to take away from the Shrine Game, because it is a great cause, and it's a great concept as well. There's just another need. And so my son Andrew was able to play in the game, and it was played for the first time in Windsor, Vermont. And it, that kind of bothered me. And so talking to many of my friends who are still coaching, I was encouraged to do something. So I reached out to Chad, and they were very intrigued. And Sharon Brown, who spearheaded their initiative in fundraising, she's from Penn State. She loves football, and it was love at first sight, so to speak. And we assembled a good team of individuals who support. There are a lot of folks working behind the scene. Trust me, this isn't just on my shoulders. There's a ton of great folks, many of them passionate because they've experienced the miracles at Chad firsthand.
You mentioned that, and Keith Jones, it was a well-documented story. His young son, Harrison, was involved in a freak snowmobile accident, and Keith Jones, a longtime coach at Milford High School, had to go to Chad with Harrison and had numerous, you talked about, it's not just a one-shot deal. I mean, you're talking many, many surgeries. It was touch and go for a little while with the little guy. And one of the most enlightening experiences I've seen was seeing him at a Milford High School basketball championship game, just bouncing around the floor at Lundholm Gym. And I was thinking, man, just about 2 years ago, this kid almost lost his legs, in that accident. And it brought a tear to my eye. And Keith Jones last year, when he was offered an opportunity to coach, like these two gentlemen that we're going to talk to next, have that opportunity now, he jumped at the chance. And I remember talking to him on the air, and he was like, I couldn't say yes fast enough.
Yeah. Keith's a remarkable individual, and the story of his son is also very remarkable. One other goal was to enlighten or teach young football players that, how do I say this, that teach them humility, that they are lucky to be as gifted as they are, because we're not in control over everything. And an accident or an illness can change your whole life. At our banquet, we had Tyler Brown speak, who also benefited from the services at Chad and was in a fight for his life for many years. And Tyler played for Coach Schubert, and he can tell you how remarkable Tyler is, not only as an athlete but as a human being. But I can honestly say, if it wasn't for Chad, Tyler may not be alive today. And Tyler gave an incredible speech at our banquet that I just think oriented everybody back to ground zero about how lucky we truly are. So if we can teach philanthropy to young, passionate men, and I think we did. The players themselves raised $50,000. And there was a contest between the two teams, and the West won by $1, interestingly enough. And their penalty for losing, for the East losing, they got to stay in the UNH visiting locker room. So it's a tremendous motivation to raise funds. But it says a lot for the kids who played in the game, and I believe many, if not all of them, had a wonderful experience in doing so.
And I think Coach Schubert, who coached at Manchester Central and had so much success there, you could be proud to say, and you're coaching the West team this year, it was a Central kid that raised the most money. I know it was Stephen Griswack, who was an outstanding kicker, and now at Stonehill, and I know his dad, Steve Griswack. He was the one that raised it. So there's some Central pride right there. You were part of the game last year. You were the athletic director. What was it like? I mean, when you were part of that, and now they asked you to be the head coach this year, you got to kind of put that whistle back on. So it's a little bit of a different story this year for you.
Yeah, Nick asked me last year to be the AD. I was the AD of the East team, which I live in Hampton, so it was a little bit closer. It was something special, stand on the sidelines and watching. Coach Raycraft did a nice job with the kids. They did, it was well done. When Nick does something, he does something very well. I mean, he takes care of things. He takes care of kids. He takes care of programs. He does, because he went through things like that. Dealing with what I saw, I played in the Shrine game in '66. I coached the Shrine game in 2006. Bobby coached a lot more than I did in Shrine games, but the difference was, as Nick said, you're picking the best players in the state now for this East-West game. It's something special. I think they do that down in Mass in the Harry Gannis Bowl or something like that. So it provides a a football game where the best players are playing, and raising money was special. I think I watched the kids; they were excited about doing it. They turned in their envelopes every other night, and it was just a special event. I was very happy to be a part of it, and I'm happy that Nick asked me to coach. I'm going to have to find a whistle again. It's gone for about 6 years now, but you still have X's and O's, and the bigger and stronger, faster X's always beats the slower and smaller O's, so that's the way it's played.
Bob, let me ask you about this. I mean, as Jim just said, you've been involved in many Shrine games, and I think the thing that I liked about it the most was the fact that it was all New Hampshire kids. I was talking with Dave a little bit in the first hour of the program how the Shrine game's exciting. I get to see these New Hampshire kids play one last time, but on the other side, I don't know. I mean, I've got family. My dad is from Vermont, so there's a little bit of that connection, and obviously the bordering states, there's some appeal to that. But when you got New Hampshire kids on one side of the field and more New Hampshire kids on the other side of the field, and we cover them, on a week-to-week basis during the football season, it's kind of nice to see them playing against each other in that all-star type format. So I think it has more appeal to the fans, and also that football community. But to me, it's just a more exciting thing, and that takes nothing away from the Shrine game. It's just more. It was just more enjoyable for me. I got more into this game last year, and I'm looking forward to this game coming up next year than I ever did about any Shrine football game.
I think the Chad game gives a different mindset. Having been affiliated with the Shrine game for 6 years, you're playing against another state. I mean, there's a whole sense of pride and pressure to win, obviously, because New Hampshire does field more football teams than Vermont. And to Vermont's credit, they play very competitively and they play hard, and I think it gets down to numbers. I think generally in past years when there's been close games, and there's been a lot of close games in the series, Vermont's lack of depth, I think, plays into effect where you got to play your whole team. And I think because New Hampshire can field teams with more depth from more schools, I think it's obviously an advantage to New Hampshire. And we're the favorite to win every year, and deservingly so. I think with the Chad game, you're going to find a healthy respect for each other, competition, teams that have played against each other within their conference, cross-conference games and whatnot. So you're going to see kids that know each other, where Vermont and New Hampshire, they don't know each other. But I think there's a sense of pride. I know as a coach, it's given me an opportunity to reunite with old friends to coach with, and to coach against old friends that we had some healthy rivalries with against. So I think it's going to be a different mindset, but it's our goal to create a positive atmosphere, competitive atmosphere, and put on a good product for people to come and watch the game for a great cause.
How hard is it when you get, a bunch of different all-state players who are used to play? I know, I'm sure defensively and offensively you kind of keep it as vanilla as you can because you've got kids who have played in so many different systems, but do you find that you're moving kids around? Maybe a kid who is a wide receiver, you move them to cornerback, or I just having the experience of coaching those games that you gentlemen have. I'm wondering how hard it is in a pretty short period of time to figure out what fits where and how to best utilize these kids, because obviously they're all all-state athletes.
Yeah, I just got a list. I think Bobby got a list too, a partial list of the kids that the coaches send their name in and they choose. I think you have to go with the coach's feeling. I think what they do is they usually circle whether it's offense or defense that they would do a better job at, and you start going with that, and then as the kids come out and you practice, you take a look at them and say, okay, like in my case, I think I got 4 all-state quarterbacks. Well, you can only play one at a time. So we're going to have to take a look at them and see if maybe they can play defensive back or wide receiver. We have to get them in the game because usually they're pretty real good athletes. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, we were thinking about that. I don't remember what the setting was, but we were talking. We were like, look at that West team. You got Lucas Lupa, you got Caparel, Riley Cody. I'm probably missing someone else here, a quarterback. That's
Where's Connor Benjamin? Where's Goffstown?
Benjamin would be on your West team as well. I mean, you got some choices there. It's not a Tim Tebow, Mark Sanchez situation there. You got some decisions to make, Coach Hubert.
They might be playing line from what I saw. You can't block them. I'm not going to be able to do much with the quarterbacks. I guarantee you that.
I mean, last year, we got to get to a break, but I remember going into that game, I was looking at the East squad, and Bill Raycraft from Wyndham was the coach of that team. And he had Emmett Smith. He had Jerickson Frederick. He had Kevin Davies. You know, just those three guys alone, I'm like, no way that the West is going to have a chance against those guys. And they blew them out. West killed them, and those three guys did nothing in the game.
And you know, looking at the rosters and the offenses that teams run today, I mean, Jimmy and I coached 5-6 years ago. And I'll tell you, one of the harder things that we're going to find is a quarterback that's somewhat familiar with taking a snap under center, because most of these guys are in shotgun formation.
Cody's not though, Riley. A central guy for you.
He's got 7 or 8 kids to decide and who he's going to put under center and what. My choice at quarterback are going to be a little fewer than him, but. As Jimmy said, you know, we try to find athletes, and we try to find people that are familiar with what. Obviously, if somebody ran the wing T, played for a wing T team, that's conducive to what we're going to do. If someone played with their hand down and, you know, whatnot. So, but we have to, in a short period of time, and unlike the Shrine experience where we had more time, more practices and whatnot, we got fewer practices. We got roughly 10 days, all right, to put in an offense and a defense. We got different coaches, different terminology, different things. So you're right. We're going to have to dumb it down. We have to keep it simple and try to pick kids that are familiar with what we're trying to do.
All right, we'll take a timeout. We've got the coaches for the 2013 Chad New Hampshire East-West High School All-Star Football Game. Jim Schubert, formerly of Manchester Central. Bob Cameron, former Concord head coach. We've also got Nick Valis. He is from the Bedford and Nashua Surgical Centers, the title sponsor, BASC, for this year's game once again. The game benefiting Children's Hospital at Dartmouth Hitchcock and Kristen Giff Endowment Fund. It's a special fund set up for children fighting cancer at Chad. They raised over $300,000 last year, and the players themselves, $51,500 were raised by those players that were playing in the game. More of the same coming up this year. We're going to broadcast the game on WGIR AM 610, and I'm sure we'll try and see, you know, the Red Sox. Who needs those guys? I mean, that was a problem. We couldn't broadcast the game on the Wave last year because of the Red Sox, but you know, no one cares about the Red Sox anymore because they stink. So we're going to try and squeeze it in on that signal as well, so we can go statewide and have an East-West radio element to the East-West High School Football All-Star Game. Quick timeout. Come back and talk a little bit about more of this. I got to ask Nick about why he's not down in South Carolina right now. You got to be like pulling your hair out, you know, not being at that game. Or maybe you are jumping on a plane after the show or something. We'll take a quick time out. It is the New Hampshire High School Football Show, WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave.
You found the best place for local high school football talk. It's the New Hampshire High School Football Show on WGIR AM 610 and News Talk 96.7 The Wave.
Yeah, techno. Deal with it.
Yikes.
It is the New Hampshire High School Football Show each and every Saturday morning, 7 to 9 a.m. right here on these two fine stations, WGIR AM 610 around Manchester. Also, 96.7 The Wave in Dave Haley and Jim Schubert country now out there on the seacoast. We have in studio Jim Schubert. We have Bob Cameron. We have Nick Valis, myself, Pete Terry, along with Dave Haley. Filming it on nhsportspage.com. The great John Casty in the house. We're talking Chad's second annual New Hampshire East-West High School All-Star Football Game. During the break, Dave, you asked the million-dollar question, how do they signify East-West? Well, New Hampshire is basically, you know, you just run a line down the middle of the state and you get Interstate 93 and Route 3. I'm talking about the Everett Turnpike Route 3. Is that how the designation is? So if you're basically west of that, you're playing for Jim Schubert. If you're east of that, you're playing for Bob Cameron this year. How hard was it to figure that one out? I mean, come on, that was probably one of the easiest things you guys had.
Well, it's actually coincidental as to how it balanced the state, not only geographically, but talent-wise. There were a couple exceptions. BG was technically on the east side of the Everett Turnpike, but we wanted to keep all the Nashville schools together. And Merrimack is technically, literally, right on the highway, and we decided to keep that as well on the west. And part of that has to do with fundraising as well. We wanted communities to get involved and not split split communities up. And and it worked out, I think, extremely well. Is it perfect? Maybe not, but I think after last year's game, some folks going into the game felt the East was going to dominate the West.
I did.
And there were very few people that were in the other corner. And lo and behold, look what happened.
Bob, you're coaching the East team. There was an East domination this year as far as championship goes. All the championship games in the upper divisions, 1, 2, and 3, took place on the Seacoast. All those home teams won their games a couple of weeks ago. Portsmouth in D3, Winnicott in D2, and Exeter in D1. When you're looking at some of the names that you're seeing coming up on your roster, you got to feel pretty good about the squad that you're going to have on June 29th at UNH.
Well, I think on paper you look at the champions and it jumps out. You're right. But if you look at the 24 teams that made the playoffs, 8 of them came from the East. So Jimmy has 16 playoff teams to select from. So I think people need to understand, don't identify the game with a couple of keynote players. I mean, as was proven last year, I think people saw the names of Davies and Smith, and they thought, oh, well, these guys are just going to walk away with this. As you know, Jim and I both know, it encompasses a team. I mean, things from special teams to offensive line to defensive linemen. As Jimmy just mentioned, yeah, he's got people who can throw the ball, but his toughest job is going to be find people up front to protect them so they can throw the ball. So a lot of intangibles go into the game. I think there are a lot of good athletes out there. You can have good athletes that played on weak teams, and you've got good athletes that played on good teams. So it's going to be a dilemma. I mean, we've got to pick people that obviously are going to help us and do what we want them to do.
You mentioned that good athletes that play on weak teams, or maybe not necessarily weak teams, but teams that you don't know a lot about. Last week, I think we were talking about those big kids. The kid from Laconia, Rage Hollis, huge kid, a lineman. And then there was a kid, Nick Dragon, I think from Monadnock. Monster kids. I mean, kids that I'm considered, and I'm a self-proclaimed Division I snob. I cover mostly Division I, Division II teams. Dave is a small school guy, went to Guilford. They didn't even have a football program, right, when you were playing?
No.
No, I'm a Nashua grad, 1988. I've been in Manchester for the past, 15 years of my life. So I follow mostly those teams. But there's some pretty good talent at those lower divisions. I mean, some of these kids like Ryan Monette.
Didn't Connor Donovan from Interlakes have a big game? Maybe it was the Shrine game, but he had a big game in one of those.
Well, he did, and the Plymouth kids, are always kids. I mean, when I was talking to Coach Jones and Coach Raycraft, one of the things that they said was those Plymouth kids, they really stick out. Lenahan, he gets some grief. We talked about this earlier on the program. People kind of complain that Chuck Lenahan and Plymouth won't go up and play some of these higher division teams. Not like they have an open date on their schedule anyway, but the travel and all that, I think that they could hold their own against some of the top teams. Maybe not be competitive on a week-to-week basis, but you always hear in these all-star games, these Plymouth kids, they're well coached, they're very well disciplined, and they're real good football players. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I can add something about Coach Lenahan. He's a special individual. Obviously, when I coached the 2006 Shrine team, I had a couple kids from Plymouth. And one of the kids had a little bit of an attitude problem. And I was working on it. But the beauty of it is we had a scrimmage in midweek, and Coach Lenahan came over to watch the scrimmage. He just asked me how his kids were doing. So without holding anything back, I pulled him aside, and I said one of his kids had a little bit of an attitude problem. That was the next day. That was Saturday. Next day on Sunday, we went out and practiced in the morning, and that kid had a totally different attitude. Now, I don't know what happened to that individual, but I'll tell you what, thank you, Mr. Lenahan. I think he went on to play at UNH, or walk on at UNH, a defensive back, but he turned out to be an awesome kid. So maybe it was me. Maybe with me. And I can't see how you can do that.
It's like camp for little kids where you tell them you're going to call your parents. I'll call Coach Lenahan right now.
Go ahead, Bob.
I think one of the positives that Jim and I both have is that we've been in the game for a long time, and we have a lot of connections with a lot of coaches at different levels. So in the selection process, we obviously rely on friends, coaches, different leagues, get input from different people, and that will help us in the selection process, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is talking? You must reach out to a lot of the coaches, or maybe they should reach out to you, really, because you have so many people to call. But do you watch film too? Do you try to see? I mean, maybe it's limited, but try to see these kids. See these kids before you see them in person.
Well, I think being retired, we have the opportunity, and myself being an official, I have an opportunity to see a lot of kids play. But, obviously we want to touch every base, and we watch games, talk to coaches, and if film's available, we'll look at film. But again, it comes down to, and unfortunately, no matter what all-star game you're doing, someone's going to feel slighted. I mean, someone's not going to make the team that felt they should have made the team and maybe should have made the team, but because you don't need a fifth quarterback, you need a starting defensive tackle. Those are the decisions that go into play as far as picking people. You got to pick teams' needs, and as we mentioned, it's not all about the skill positions. All right,
Sure.
We got to pick people that can help us win the game, that do the things that people aren't aware of, and that's whether it be linebacker play or offensive line. So tough decision.
My philosophy when I was at Central for those 16 years is the best players play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. You go out there, you work hard, and I will determine who the best players are through evaluation and seeing them every day out in the field. And when you put that hat on, it's time to practice and it's time to play, and we went that route. And so I had kids that started on the varsity as freshmen, and I had seniors that didn't play very much because they didn't get in the weight room in the off season or didn't do what they were supposed to do. As Bobby says, what we have to do is just go out and try to pick the best kids we can pick for the All-Star game. Some kids are going to be slighted, but that's the way it goes. That's the way life is, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a good place to start learning about it. With the structure of sports and high school sports in particular. Nick, I want to ask you about when you picked a time frame or a date, so to speak, to play this game. Last year, I think it was June 23rd. This year, June 29th. So slightly after, well, barring any crazy, snow days and things like that, but after the kids are graduated, really before they start, getting really geared up to go to college. I know the Shrine game takes place in mid-August, so these kids are playing in that game, and then many of them are leaving like the next week to go to college. How did you kind of figure out when the right time to play this game was?
It's a great question. If you look across the country, a lot of your high school all-star football games take place in June, and if you think about a lot of the great athletes or greater high school athletes that are playing, some of them are scholarship athletes going on to D1, D1AA, and if you're playing in August, they're not going to be able to participate.
Mm-hmm.
So to that end, we felt June would be a great month. Also, just practice. The climate is, I think, less hot, if you may, and more conducive to just a healthier climate to practice in pads. So it worked out. Last year's game, some of the kids had to miss practice because of graduation and personal commitments. So. And we asked the coaches to be tolerant, and they were. The coaches were great, and so to that end, it worked out very well. It works out even better this year because it's right at the very end of the month, and all of the ceremonial aspects of graduation and class day and the like, all those things should be over with by the time they start practicing for the game.
Was there ever any consideration of doing it, because you're very far removed from football season, on June 29th. You can't get much farther away from it than that. Was there ever any thought about maybe trying this thing in December or something?
If we had a dome stadium or something like that.
Well, I hear UNH is going to get one soon.
We'll build them one. But there was some consideration to that. We just felt that this was probably the way to go. I believe Vermont has a north-south game at the end of the season.
Really?
Yeah, and so they get a chance to pick. For the Shrine game, they actually get to see the kids play, and pick from that venue as well. June still works out pretty well. Football's, for a lot of us, it's year-round. It's a passion. It's year-round, and I don't believe we miss a beat because it's in June.
Being on the committee last year, we met at the conclusion of the game, And this is an ongoing process with Nick. He wants to perfect, make it better every year. And the extension this year of the game being a week later, I think, is conducive to kids being able to go on class trips, graduations, all that type of thing. In reference to the Vermont game, which they play, I believe, like a week after their season, just before Thanksgiving, something on that aspect, then you're talking organization. All right, you're scrambling, coaching, practices, all the above. I think in order to present a good product, this is the perfect timing. All right, we have time to plan the game, do it right, organize, fundraise. The kids get to play the game in June, and for those kids who a lot of them will play in another All-Star game in August for the Shrine team, it gives them a break. All right, so that they don't have 5 weeks of continuous football before they go on to college and maybe play football. So when you look at it from a coaching point of view, I think it's just great timing right in the middle. So I think it's a real positive.
All right, we got to get to a break, come back, and we got to find out why Nick isn't at that UNH game down at Wofford tonight. He's got two sons playing for the team. One of the quarterbacks on the team, Jimmy Bayless, defensive player for the Wildcats. They're going for it in the playoffs, and he's sitting here doing a radio show with us here in New Hampshire while they're down in South Carolina. We'll find out the deal with that. And I got to get the takes of the former coaches of the current situation with their old teams now. Jim Schubert, what's going on with Manchester Central? They lose to Trinity. Would that have ever happened in Jim Schubert era? And what about Concord? Jamie Staten here in August said Concord's a playoff team in Division I. They didn't make the playoffs this year. We'll talk to coaches Schubert and Cameron about the state of their former teams when we return to the New Hampshire High School Football Show, WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave.
Best local coverage of New Hampshire high school football on the New Hampshire High School Football Show on WGIR AM 610 and News Talk 96.7 The Wave.
Wrapping up the program with our special in-studio guests from the CHAD second annual New Hampshire East-West High School All-Star Football Game. We'll go around the horn. Nick Bayless from the Bedford and Nashua Ambulatory Surgical Center, the founder of the game, the brainchild of the game, and the main sponsor of the game, the title sponsor of the game, Basque, once again back this year with the support. We've got the coach of the East team, Bob Cameron, former Concord High School football coach. We've got Jim Schubert, former Manchester Central head man. He's coaching up the West team. Of course, Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. I am Pete Terrier. I want to start with you, Jim, because Manchester Central obviously had its peak when you were coaching, winning those state championships. One of the most dominant teams of all time in New Hampshire high school history. People talk about that 2004 team as, perhaps the best team in the entire history of the state of New Hampshire high school football. Central has been a playoff team. They've been decent. They've been pretty good. I like Ryan Ray a lot. I think he does a good job. But Central, a lot of hype this year going into the season. People said that they might have a chance to compete. But they finished, I think, 500 this year and lose to Trinity in the Turkey Bowl. I got to get your take on it. You're still close to the program. I see you at the game, on the sideline, thing like that. What's your take on the state of Central football today?
Well, I was involved with hiring Ryan when I left, and I think he was a good choice. I think he is a good choice. They've had winning seasons. Other than this year, they were 6-6. But prior to that, he's had winning seasons. What happens is it all depends what you get. And as Coach Cameron knows, what comes through the door, what comes through the weight room in January, that you have to prepare for, what's going to happen in August and through the whole year. I just think there's a little slump there, but I think he'll be back next year. I think he only had 11 seniors this year.
Yeah.
He's losing his quarterback. He's losing a real good wide receiver, a guy that plays center, excellent. They got some good players that are leaving, but I think he's going to reload, and I think, he's going to be there. And the way the division is set up for next year, I was looking at it the other day, I think it's going to be very competitive. And I think he's going to do fine. I think Central is going to be right back where it was, 10 years ago. So,
did they underachieve this year? I mean, just looking at the talent, you mentioned Cody and you mentioned Pelletier and those two great running backs that they had. And, I think where they were down a little bit this year was on the line. Central usually is known for dominating lines, both sides of the ball, and their defense just wasn't very good this year.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think offensively they were very good. They did some real nice things offensively, very creative. Defensively, I think they struggled. And when you struggle on defense and you get behind, you have to catch up, and sometimes it doesn't work. And I think they've done a good job, and they'll shore up the defense. I think they got 9 defensive kids coming back, so that's real positive. I think he'll be fine. I think the Central program will be fine.
So people that say Ryan Ray's got to go, I mean, they're off base, aren't they?
How do you get rid of somebody that hasn't had a losing season since 2006 when I left? He hasn't had a losing season. So what do you get rid of? This is high school football.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you make like $5,000 a year. What are you joking? You know what that comes out to? When I was opening a weight room in January, and I was there every 3 days a week when my wife almost divorced me.
Right.
I'll tell you what, that comes out to about 50 cents an hour, and that's true.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think, Dave, you said that earlier today. Bob, you stepped down as head coach at Concord in 2008. You had success. You guys, I remember, probably the last couple of players that I remember from Concord, the 2 Kyles, Kyle Brown and Kyle Starr, outstanding running backs for you guys. You stepped down and Concord, really overall, their sports program outside of hockey, and even that hockey program with Dunk Walsh hasn't been what it was in their heyday. But Concord sports in general is down. I mean, long gone are the days of Matt Bonner and even the basketball team dominating. But what is it about Concord sports and the struggle? They were a little bit better football-wise this year, but what is it about Concord kind of going down as far as athletics across the board?
Well, I think at a school like Concord, we hang our hat on athletes. And generally, when you find that teams have multi-sport athletes on their teams, that most of those teams are going to be pretty good. I think initially, after I'd left, they went through a real drought as far as athletes playing different sports. And when I was there, we really depended on each other to help each other out as far as recruiting kids from different teams to help play. When I was successful, it's because I had kids from the hockey team, kids from the basketball team, kids from the baseball team. So initially, after I left, they had a tough couple of years. Eric and his staff have done an outstanding job. They're right on schedule. They're turning things around. They had a great year this year. They were 6-4, maybe 2 or 3 minutes short of making the playoffs. They had that little lapse against Nashua North. If they had played well in those 3 minutes in the course of the game, they would have been in the playoffs. He's got only 3 seniors that started this year. He's got a great nucleus back next year. He had an undefeated JV team. So I think on paper they're one of the premier teams in the Division I next year to be a candidate to win the whole thing. So he's right on schedule. I mean, I knew when I stepped down that it was going to be a rough couple of years. There wasn't much coming up, and Eric knew that, but he was patient and he was diligent. He's got a good staff with him. They're doing nice things. So I think Concord fans can look forward to an outstanding future, and they'll be very successful. But again, good athletes make good coaches. And again, at schools, unlike other schools where they can pretty much field teams that don't play other sports, at Concord you need good athletes. And when you have good athletes, they're successful. Scotty Owen won a baseball championship last year. Eric had a 6-4 record this year. So I think the positive things are on the rise for Concord High in the future.
Hey, Nick, your son Andy played for BG. I don't know if Jimmy played for BG as well.
He did, yeah.
Okay. BG, another school that struggled this year. They were a playoff team. People still longing for the days of Tony Johnson. Travis Cody won a championship last year in his first year, had him in the playoffs this year in a very competitive Division II. All the BG parents and, even if their kids have graduated, are just, killing Travis Cody and saying that, hey, we got to bring Tojo back, or let's get Mark Phillips in here to coach. I just got to get your take as a guy who, was a BG athletic supporter for with your kids there. What's your take on the state of Bishop Girton football?
Both Jim and Bob here will tell you about athletes, and it's so true. It's coaches are special and important, but as special and as important as they may be, you need very good athletes, and it's competitive. It's very, very competitive. And comparing Travis to Tony Johnson isn't fair to Travis. If you think about the mechanics or the intricacies of the BG program today versus when Tony was there. Tony was in the school all the time, and that makes a difference. Both Bob and Jim will tell you that the amount of time you spend out of school with your kids in the off season is so important. And so to that end, the bricks and mortar of the program are not the same as what they used to be. But without question, if you look at the numbers of players participating at BG, I got to believe it's probably 50-60% of what it was if you look at the sidelines of how many people are in the program. Significantly less than in previous years. So Travis is a good coach, great guy, but to compare him to Tony is just not fair. And you look at Tony's first year as a prep school coach. I mean, he took it on the chin this year. I mean, he's got to build a program. So, and Travis has to build a program his way now. So he's 2 years into it, and only time will tell whether or not he was the right choice.
All right, we only got a minute left, but I've been teasing it all hour. Your sons play for UNH. They got a big playoff game this afternoon down in South Carolina against Wofford. Running the football is what we can expect from Wofford. Why aren't you there today watching your sons play?
Difficult question, but basically my wife is there with my son Jim. My son Jim is a defensive end. He is injured. He's got a herniated disc in his neck, and he got hurt in the Delaware game. So to make the trip, he went with my wife. I also have a son at home, Michael. And he's also my in-laws are coming over this weekend, so I'm home, and we'll get to watch the game. We also are very much involved in the Santa Shuffle today.
Okay.
We're a prime sponsor, and so there were a lot of good reasons, and to be here as well.
So UNH, though, is going to take this game. You guys all agree? I'll let you guys all cast your votes. Is it UNH over Wofford this afternoon? Or either one of you guys Wofford grads by any chance?
No, I think UNH will put some points up on the board. They just have to make sure they shut down the running game. If they don't shut down the running game, their offense won't be out on the field, and then they won't be able to put points up. But I think UNH will win today.
How about you, Bob? We got less than a minute.
Well, I'll agree with the genius here. All right, if UNH plays good defense and not necessarily stop the run game, but I think control it and then create big plays on offense, I think they have a real good chance of winning the game. So.
All right, and real quickly, for Dave Haley here, Notre Dame football fan extraordinaire, you're going to find out your opponent tonight because Alabama and Georgia plays whoever wins that game. Does Notre Dame, yes or no, have a chance against the winner of the SEC? Anybody?
Absolutely. Defense.
Notre Dame has proven all the doubters wrong, so I can't go against them. They've done everything that we didn't think they could do, so you know what? They play the game, and they got as good a chance of winning as anybody does.
I said yes or no, and Cameron goes off with this big breakdown.
I love the
answers. You got a future in this business. We got to go. Thanks so much, Nick Bayless, Bob Cameron, and Jimmy Schubert. For Dave Haley, I'm Pete Terrier. Check out the website, chadallstarfootball.org, June 29th, Cowell Stadium at UNH.